we're back and we are talking about feedback mechanisms in this mini episode here. So, feedback mechanisms, we're going to go through all of the it's mechanisms first off are to help us maintain homeostasis in the body or that dynamic internal equilibrium. So in order to do that, we do feedback mechanisms in our body here. So I'm first going to go through the actual scientific anatomical terms, then we're going to get into the analogy side of things here, and it's a longer analogy that connects all the way through, so I think it'll really boom boom, light bulb, eureka, eureka. I think Einstein had some analogies up his sleeve here. I wish he would have left a couple for us, but we're gonna make do with what we have here today in the feedback mechanism. So first off, first part of a feedback mechanism is there's two different types which we're going to discuss in the next episode, but feedback mechanisms, all of every feedback mechanism or both, each of them has a stimulus, so that's a change in the internal environment. So this could be an increase in blood pressure, decrease in blood pressure, any change to that internal environment, that homeostasis, boom, that's the stimulus. Stimulus. And then we also have a receptor. So the receptor is the second part. It's the structure that detects the change in the internal environment. So this could be a thermoreceptor that detects a change in temperature, change in heat in our body. So the actual structure that detects the change in environment is receptor. Then we have the control center. This receives input from the receptor. So it goes in a chain: stimulus, receptor, control center, and then we'll see the last two here. But the control center receives information from the receptor, processes this info, and then decides the best way to fix the issue. So it's kind of like the headquarters. It's obviously the control center. This happens in the brain, the spinal cord, and then the some endocrine glands here, but mostly brains, the spinal cord, and then those endocrine glands, which secrete substances into our body, which we're not going to discuss in this episode here. But brain, spinal cord, endocrine glands are those are the control centers, and then from the control center it goes to the effector. So effector, it's kind of in its name. It's the structure that brings about the appropriate change to the environment. So whatever brings about that appropriate change, from the stimulus to the receptor to the control center, and boom, delegate the best way to fix the issue, goes to the effector, the muscle gland, which is the structure that decides the best way to fix the issue. And then the response, last but certainly not least, is the appropriate obviously reaction to the stimulus. So it's the stimulus, receptor, control center, effector, and then response is obviously the kind of determining, okay, what is the reaction to the stimulus, and it should be an appropriate reaction. So most of the times, we'll actually discuss this in the feedback mechanisms, the two different types, in the next episode, but let's get into the analogy in this episode here. So think of the stimulus as a burglar breaking into the house. It's the change in the environment within the house. So burglar breaks into the house, boom, the security system, the receptor, actually recognizes the abnormal activity since the alarm was set already. So boom, stimulus, burglar breaks in, climbs through the window. Receptor detects the change in the internal environment. That's the security system that recognizes the abnormal activity because the alarm was set at a certain time of night. Control center is the 911 call center that is notified from the security system. So 911 operator realizes it, the control center, boom, this is in the brain, spinal cord, or endocrine glands, and that it realizes the break-in is possible, so it notifies the police department on the location of the burglary. So boom, we're going to the effector. The effector in this case would be 3 police cars arrive at the house and enter the house with flashlights on and weapons drawn because they don't know what can be in the house. They're the effector. They're the effect. The control center, boom, 911 sends the police officers. Those are the effectors. Those are the muscle and glands in our bodies in this analogy. And then the response, obviously, is appropriate reaction to the stimulus. So the appropriate reaction to this stimulus of a burglar breaking into a house is burglar is arrested by police officers. So boom, so burglar breaks in, stimulus, receptor, security system notifies or realizes that something abnormal is happening because the alarm was set. Control center, 911 operator, we're sending out the boys in blue. Effector is the 3 police cars arriving and entering into the house. The effect and the response, obviously, is the burglar being arrested by the police officers. So, stimulus, receptor, control center, effector, and then response is the reaction, the appropriate reaction to the stimulus. So it's a pretty simple process. Just think it through, whether it's in your body something happening, or this analogy is a great way to keep everything like, oh, okay, this does make sense, this series of events from the stimulus, receptor, control center, effector, and the response. So we're going to see back here next episode here with the 2 types of feedback mechanisms.